Hello, in this video we're going to talk about hitting milestones. So once you've planned your video game project and you've got a plan for, there's going to be 10 milestones, the main mode that you're going to be in, for the next 10 months is hitting milestones. So this one's really important and it really gets to the sort of core of what a producer does. It's keeping the project on track. So away we go. So first of all, you've got to define your milestone. You do this in Jira or whatever your issue tracking system is. So you'll have a collection of issues that you want to get done, and you'll set the fix revision to the milestone that you're working on. So let's say it's milestone 1. So all the issues that you want to do for milestone 1 have got a fixed revision of milestone 1. Ideally have the leads set the original estimates on the tasks so you can add up if there's enough time. So if you've got 30 tasks you want to get done, they've each got estimates, you can add up all those estimated days and see whether the team and each individual has enough days within the milestone to get it done, preferably with a bit of padding thrown in so that they're not using every moment of the milestone just on the estimates. Track progress. So as the milestone's going and the date is approaching, get the team in the habit of keeping their Jira statuses up to date, recording time spent on tasks. Ideally, nobody likes doing that, but it's good if people do that. And adding comments to the Jira issues. Let's just talk about the recording the time spent on tasks. So you might have a task and it's estimated as 3 days. Each day, that team member that's working on it, first of all, they'd set the status to in progress, like I'm actually working on this now. And then day by day, they could update the issue with I've spent another 8 hours on it. I've spent another 8 hours on it, and when it's done, you can see what was the actual time spent, because the estimate is just a guess, and the actual is more interesting. And you can see if that one was over, maybe if we've got to do a similar task in the future, maybe we can make a better estimate next time. Or we can ask other good questions about why things got done quicker or took longer. Things will never take exactly the amount of time that the estimate is, because it's just a guess. But all right. And as you're tracking progress, then you can use Jira filters and dashboards to track the progress. So with everybody updating the statuses of the issues, you can filter, like show me all of the milestone tasks, maybe exclude the things that have been closed, so I only see what's remaining, and that's kind of gradually reducing. And maybe you've got a dashboard, so you've got like fancy charts and graphs of how things are trending over time. Ideally, it's nice to see a burn down graph of the estimated time remaining over time. This would allow you to see if the remaining work will hit 0 before the deadline. Here's a good article on burn down graphs. Let me just bring this up. So this is on monday.com and it's a burn down chart. Let me just kind of skim down to a diagram. So imagine you've got all your tasks and you add up how many hours they're going to take. The vertical graph, the vertical axis is your capacity. Okay, it says capacity. This is the number of hours available. So if you've got 20 days to get this project done, and each person's got 8 hours a day, then it's 20 times 8 is your capacity. So here we can see, and time goes sideways, so number of days. So you can see that the capacity, the time we have available goes down until we hit the deadline. That's the blue line. So this is the ideal effort hours. Effort being sort of, well, estimated time, or time. So the number of hours available goes down as time passes. Okay, and then effort remaining is the estimated time. So from all of your issues, it's the total of the estimated time remaining. And what tends to happen is, as the days go by, like, oh, first of all, we had a good day. We closed out a bunch of tasks quicker than expected, and so the amount of effort remaining, or the amount of estimated work remaining, went down quicker than expected. So initially they were both at the same point. That means that we put the right number of we put the number of tasks in to the milestone that we felt that we could get done based on the estimates. So that's why they both started together. Then we had a good day where we got ahead of schedule. All right, another reasonably good day there, and then oops, a sideways day. We didn't make any progress. Why? Well, who knows? Maybe there was a power outage and nobody could do any work, or maybe just maybe there was a bug in the game, and anybody that tried to run the game, it would just crash, and they couldn't test their work, they couldn't finish any tasks, and oh dear, look, another day and another day, and we're just going sideways. There's some other reasons. It could be like, yes, the team are actually getting through tasks, but some new bugs came in, and we've really got to fix these bugs this milestone because these are important bugs. And so the number of tasks on the milestone has been increasing, but we can't avoid this. So we are making progress, but at the same time we're adding more work. So the effort remaining didn't go down for a few days. And then in this case, all right, we had some more good days. That one was kind of like an on-schedule day. And then we had a couple of great days, and then we're ahead of schedule again. So when the red line goes below, we're ahead of schedule. And then, wow, we stuck the landing. We managed to finish all the tasks just in time, for the milestone. This can go better. Like, this could go down really quickly. We could get done with all the milestone work days before the milestone is due. It can also go worse, where this red line just goes, past this blue line. And one thing you can do when you've got a graph like this is look at how it is trending. If it is, trending steeply down, and you can kind of like predict, oh yeah, it's gonna finish early. That's good to know. If it's trending sideways like this, oh, that's not good. Like, it's never going to cross the, it's never going to get to zero at this rate. So I really like graphs because you can spot trends. Because a key question that's going to keep coming up is, are we going to be done on time? For this milestone, is this milestone going to get done on time? What about shipping the game? Is this game going to ship on time? So the ability to sort of predict the future based on trends is really, really important. And without a graph, without data, then you're just guessing. It's like, are we going to be done on time? I don't know. Seems pretty good. Like, you're just guessing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of burn down charts. And this article, goes into more detail about them. All right, so tracking the progress. So we're tracking that milestone, and then finishing the milestone. So the milestone is complete when there are no more issues for that fix revision. So there are, all the issues in Jira have been marked closed. Because they've been fixed, or for whatever reason they are closed. There are no more tasks that are open that are on the current milestone. That means you are done with the milestone. This is my definition of, are we done? When Jira says 0 for that milestone, that's when you're done. And in order to get to 0 issues, you might need to do some of the following. You might have some people who are done with tasks, done with all their milestone tasks, while others still have multiple tasks. So, if some people are done with the milestone tasks, consider having them help other people with their remaining issues. This works well if issues can be done by anybody. Now, if you've got an artist with a lot of work to do and a programmer who's finished, programmer's is probably not going to be able to take on the artwork because it's just a very different set of skills. Similarly, like within, let's say, programming, if you've got a programmer that does the user interface and they know the user interface really well and they're very productive at doing it, but they've got a lot of tasks, it might be difficult for somebody else that's not done user interface before to just jump in and save the day. So it's not always possible, but for general bug fixing, where it's just like, see that thing that's not working, go and work that out, and see, and fix it. That tends to work, be easy to spread. And if some issues no longer seem important, consider closing them, or you could push some issues to a future milestone. But avoid pushing things too often. It's a trap. All right, sounds easy, right? We define the milestone, we track it, we finish it, we get to 0. What's so hard about that? Well, sometimes things go off track and you need to get back on track. And this is, I guess it varies by project, but this is a very common state to be in of like, we're behind schedule, things seem off track, etc. So let's talk about this and what we can do about it. So first of all, why are we usually behind? Why are most projects behind? Almost every game you work on will seem to be behind schedule. This is my sort of take on it. This is caused by underestimated tasks or underestimated issues and unanticipated issues. So issues are underestimated because people tend to estimate things going well. There's an old saying which holds some truth. If a programmer gives you an estimate, double it. So, if a programmer says, oh, that's going to take me 2 days, in your mind think, yeah, probably 4. And it holds some truth. It's not, some people are better at estimating than others, but generally people think things are going to go well. I think I said in another video, if you estimate it's going to take me 15 minutes to go and put gas in the car and come back, well, some days that turns into an hour because there's a traffic jam and the car broke down, there's a line at the gas station. Whereas the opposite, the other direction doesn't happen. Like, it's not like, oh, I said 15 minutes, it turns out it was only a minute, that doesn't happen. So things tend to take longer rather than shorter when things don't, when you don't meet the estimate, it tends to fall on the long side rather than the short side. And unanticipated issues are everywhere. Someone has a great new idea of something to add. There's also a term for that. We call it feature creep. We originally decided on this many features, but we keep adding them because it'd be cool if. So that's feature creep. When the estimate was made, nobody thought about insert required feature here. So we made the design for the game. Nobody thought about voice chat. Of course we need voice chat, but just nobody thought about it. And now here we are. Where do we fit this into the schedule? The game isn't fun, and it needs big changes to for us to find the fun and add new features and such. And bugs. Bugs are always happening. Every time you fix a bug, you add 2 more, is the joke. These things are unanticipated, and yeah, cause you problems. So what happens if you're always behind, or you're behind too often? Well, when things are going badly, you'll see things like milestones are delivered late. So you don't hit 0 on time, you hit 0, a few days late or a week late, and the milestone is late. What happens then to the next milestone? Like, do we push the date out of that? That one's going to finish later as well? Or does the date stay the same, and now we've got to get that work done in less time than we thought was possible? So it can cause like a knock-on effect of like, next one's also delayed, and then maybe that one's late as well. So milestones get delivered late. Tasks are repeatedly pushed to the next milestone, but the next milestone's already full. Like we've already got a plan for the next milestone, and now we're pushing things from milestone 1 into milestone 2, but milestone 2 is already full. So now milestone 2's got problems. So it becomes like a growing snowball of work that's not getting done. And milestone 3, milestone 4, you keep on pushing, and that push list gets bigger and bigger, and the snowball's getting bigger. Pushing to the next milestone is one way of hitting the milestone date for the current milestone, but you're robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of. Yes, you hit the date, but you did it by reducing the scope of the current milestone and inflating the scope of the next. Sometimes the game can become almost unplayable due to all the focus going on new features and not enough time being spent staying on top of bugs. It's natural for a game to have bugs in development. It's unavoidable. And you've got to keep on top of them. It's kind of like weeding a garden, and if you don't, then it becomes like a minefield. It's like, you can run the game. Oh, don't walk over there. The game will crash. And don't fire the grappling hook. Game will crash. And so the game can become kind of unplayable unless you keep on top of bugs. But you've got this pressure of like, we said we were going to get all these features in this milestone. If we don't get these features in, then we're going to miss the milestone. So, maybe these bugs, maybe we can ignore them. Maybe we can delay them, So they end up, the game gets very buggy. Tensions build between people. As people know, there's too much to do. It's stressful when things are not going well. You've committed to making this game and building all these features or levels or art assets, and you're behind schedule, and that's stressful. It's like being late for an appointment. And when people are stressed, and then they're also working together, and they've got a producer breathing down their neck, saying like, "Hey, when's it going to be done? When's it going to be done? You're behind schedule." People get tense, people get stressed, and they start, pointing fingers at each other and arguing, and that kind of thing. So it's another sort of sign that things are not going well. And so, you realize you're off track. You realize you're not going to ship on time. If all the milestones along the way are not getting hit, then you're not going to hit the last one of shipping the game on time. Or maybe you'll ship the game, but the quality is not going to be there. All these bugs you've been ignoring, or the polish that you're going to have to give up on, means the quality is not going to be there in the end. So, what can you do? I'm gonna show a bunch of slides, and it's not the complete answer. There's going to be other answers out there, but I'm going to cover a bunch of bases. Some of them are better ideas than others, and really you're going to be using a mix of them all the time. So it's not that like any one of these slides is going to be like, oh, that's what we do. It's you end up doing a bunch of things. But okay, so let's have a look at some things that we can do to get back on track. First of all, determine the problem. Get a detailed understanding of what problems you have. It's good to also understand how you got there, like, all right, why do we have this problem? But avoid blaming people or spending time wishing that the past was different. Live in the present moment. Okay, what problems do we have right now? How do we get here? Oh, okay, all right, so we need to improve our processes, or, that's why it's good to know how you got there. But the main question is, what do we do next? How do we fix this? So, all right, got to do that. We've got an understanding of what the problems are. Discuss the problems with the leads, so everyone's on the same page. So, it's good that everybody talks. Okay, we've got the following problems. Okay, we all understand. Everybody chips in and says why we got here and what we should do, etc. So, have that discussion with the leads. Form a plan for tackling each problem. And then this may include things from the following slides. Okay, all right. So what can we do? Cut quality. That doesn't sound like a good thing, but let's think it through. Okay, so keep the scope of the game the same. So we're building the same sized thing. All the stuff that we said we were going to build, we're going to build. But let's not iterate on it. Let's not polish it so much, okay? So, if you've got to make a chair model, then you made a chair, okay, version 1, we'll take it. We're shipping it as is. Let's never touch that chair again. Sounds like a plan. So the game still has 12 levels, 14 NPCs, 20 weapons, but it's not so great. The art is a bit janky in places, and it never looks great. You never look at the screen and go like, wow, that looks good, Animations look kind of wooden because they've not really been polished. And when they transition from one animation to another, there's kind of a pop because, well, we didn't have time to really smooth that out. The difficulty of the game, so this is kind of like the design department, difficulty of the game is non-linear. It's got frustrating hard moments early on. So if everyone's getting stuck and really angry on level 2 because they keep dying, they may just give up on the game and consider it a bad game. So that's one thing that designers do, is try and make a smooth ramp to the difficulty of the game, so you're getting better and the challenge is rising as you get better. And there are bugs which most players will notice, like, oh yeah, that tree, it disappears when when it's near the edge of the screen, and it's a bug. And everyone's going to see that tree disappear, Well, we're going to ship with it because that's what we're going to do. So this is not a good option. Everyone loses. The team know that they're making something bad, and they have low morale because nobody wants to make a game that they think is bad. The game is not fun. Players don't like it. It gets bad reviews, so other buyers are no longer interested in it because it's getting bad reviews, and the game doesn't sell well, so the investor loses money. Like, they paid to make this game, it's not very good, and it's not going to sell, it's not going to make any money, so nobody's happy. So cutting quality is not a good option. Now, it's not black and white. It's a million decisions of when is it good enough. So I'm describing an extreme here where we say, like, minimum bar everywhere. In reality, that's a gray scale. So maybe instead of like 3 iteration passes, we do 2, or instead of 2, we do 1, or something like that. Or we tell the QA department, like, hey, we're relying on you guys to point out things that look bad, and we're going to fix just the things that you guys talk about, rather than what we want to fix. Because if you talk to an artist, let's say, they're going to want to make things really beautiful, everything really beautiful, and we just don't have time for that. So getting the quality, setting the quality sort of threshold, is a fine-tuning thing, and it is something that you can. It is a dial that you can turn, figuratively speaking, to save some time, but at the cost of some quality. All right, I better move on. Work longer hours. Hey everybody, let's just work longer. Ask the team to work longer hours and perhaps weekends. In my view, this can work okay for short-term goals. Like, we've got a milestone on Friday. Hey everybody, let's stay late a few days this week to make sure we hit that milestone. Or maybe, well, it was due at the end of day Friday. Let's deliver it first thing on Monday and work a bit into the weekend. This kind of thing is pretty common in the games industry, and perhaps it's not ideal, but I think some of this is not too bad. But it doesn't work well for long periods, in my view. Staff get burnt out, they quit, they become less efficient with their time, so that they might be working 12 hours a day, but they're really only getting 8 hours worth of productive work done because they're sleepy and tired and grumpy and nipping out to shower or sleeping under the desk. They just become less efficient the longer they do it. So yeah, I think working longer hours for short periods is okay. For long periods, it in my view doesn't work so well. Also, sometimes staff are paid hourly, and that costs the company money. We're paying people for additional hours. Maybe we're paying them time and a half or double time. So that adds up quickly. And so what you're essentially doing is increasing, or burning through the budget, or increasing the amount, that you're spending on the game. So that's not good. Yeah. In my opinion, repeated or long periods of crunch reflect poor planning and project management, and also show a disregard for the employees. I realize that different people see it differently. I'm a little bit older and more I don't know. I'm a bit older, and I like I like going home at the end of the work day. I know that some younger folks, they've got a lot of energy. They're excited to be working in games. They really want to make this game the very best game, and they're happy to do the extra hours. Cool, go for it. And also, by putting in that effort, by hitting those deadlines, by making a quality game, that game might be really successful. You might make something great that does really well financially. And, at some companies, it might be like, hey, you work these extra hours, but if the game does well, we're going to reward you. We're going to give you bonuses or extra time off or, this kind of thing. So, there can be direct financial benefits to working hard. So it's, okay, so working longer hours is an option. Add more staff. You could scale up the team so you get more work done at once without working longer hours. So, if we've got a team of 8 people, maybe if we had a team of 12 people, we'd be able to get back on schedule because we've got 50% more, bandwidth and more things getting done at once. There's a few downsides with this. It costs more to hire more people, obviously. Often you'll not be allowed to increase the budget in this way. If when they planned the project and they decided how much they were going to spend, they decided on a certain number of people. And so if you go, adding more people, then the project costs more. And that may not be wanted. It might take weeks or months to hire new staff, which may not be quick enough to solve the problem. So, if you're struggling to complete the milestone that is due in a couple of weeks, you're not going to be able to hire somebody quickly enough to make a difference for that milestone. So it's kind of it's a slower burn, solution, adding people. And plus, when they when you hire them and they join, they need to get up to speed. They need to learn the engine and the tools and what we're making, and it just takes them a few weeks at least to become really productive. So it's kind of like a slow fix. Interviewing candidates eats up time that could be spent working on the game. So to hire one good person, you might have to interview, I don't know, 5 people, 10 people. And each time you interview them, it's a bunch of your developers going into the room and asking questions for hours. And so you're losing a lot of development time interviewing all these people to hire somebody in the future. That interviewing eats up the time short term that you're hoping that is going to solve your problems long term. So it may cause you some short term headaches. Might make the current milestone even harder to hit because you're busy interviewing. But yeah, so this is a long term fix. You're looking at like, how do we fix the future milestones? Yeah. And also remember, there are limits to how big the team can be while still being effective. Too many cooks in the kitchen. So there's a limit. I'm not saying you can't add people, just you need to be aware of how well you're going to be able to spread out the tasks and whether people are going to end up tripping on each other. At some point that happens. So adding staff is definitely an option. Change the ship date. Okay, well, this would be nice. Avoid the problems of growing the team or cutting scope. Avoid some other problems by just changing the deadline. It's not. If we move the ship date out, then there's more time to make it, and the team can kind of just focus on quality and executing on the original vision. It's not always possible to do this though. If the game needs to come out at the same time as a movie, then it has to ship on that date and can't move. Also, companies don't like it because it costs more to make the game, and making the profit on the game is pushed further away. So again, you're increasing the budget for the game, and the company is eager to see, like, is this game good? Is it going to make money? And the time that they get to find that out gets moved further into the future. So companies tend not to want to move the ship date, although they will, if necessary, if it makes for the game being better. Stagger the release. All right, change what needs to be delivered on the ship date. So imagine you've got a game that's coming out on PC and Xbox and PlayStation. Well, you could just ship the PC on the release date and delay the release of the console versions. This allows you to delay some of the console work until after the PC version is out. There's a slight hidden benefit here that PC tends to require less submission time. So the time between submit and street it is typically lower on PC than it is on console. So that gives you a little bit more time before submission. This allows the team to just sort of focus on getting the game good on one platform, get that out, and then, okay, now let's finish off getting it working on console. However, there are problems that come with this. There might be some marketing hype planned for when the game releases, and this may subside by the time the console version ships. There might be a big marketing splash, as in a lot of money being spent on ads and stuff, and you really want the game to be available on all the platforms when that advertising's happening, because as soon as the advertising disappears, a lot of the sales disappear with it. So that's a downside of spreading out when the different platforms release. For a live game, like a mobile free-to-play game, you could reduce the scope of the first release, delaying features to subsequent releases. So, maybe the player can have a jetpack for flying around, but it causes a bunch of headaches, which are going to take us a long time to fix. Well, let's just delay that jetpack feature until, release 2 or release 3 of the game, and the initial release won't have jetpacks. And then actually it becomes like a marketing feature of like, hey everybody, there's jetpacks, later on. Reducing the scope of the game for the initial release and then adding more later. Really, live games always do this. But maybe you can find a feature or two that you can push to later. So this allows you to ship a smaller game sooner. It allows you to receive initial feedback, so you know if the game is on the right track. I'll just to explain that, rather than getting all the features in for the initial version and then releasing it only to find people hate this game, like there's nothing we can do about it. It's not related to the jetpack, it's not related to the speedboats. They just don't like X, Y, Z about this game, and we've got big problems. So if you can ship a smaller game sooner and get some initial feedback of like, hey, what do you think so far? And if there's a positive response, it's like, great, cool, we're on the right track. All right, let's add more features and put out more versions. Finding that out sooner is better. But if you cut too many corners, if you make the scope too small, you'll get problems like I described earlier for cutting quality. It's like there's nothing to do in this game. I'm wandering around and the world is empty, and I can't do anything because all that stuff is coming in the next version. So people are not going to like the game. So there's a limit to how much you can cut and reduce the first version. All right, so that's staggering releases. And now, so the slides that I've mentioned so far, there's definitely some good stuff in there. Some things that you can do. Let me just go back and go over them a bit. You could scale down the quality a bit. Okay, that's okay. Scale it down a bit. Just be a bit more selective about what you're going to polish, and maybe save some time that way. Don't cut it too much. Work longer hours. Yeah, you could do this occasionally. It's best not to plan to do it though. Only do it like because you accidentally have to do it. Don't plan on, we're just gonna overbook the amount of work that needs to be done. Add more staff, talk to management, see whether they're interested in increasing the team size, and and again, this is like a long-term fix, not a short-term fix. Change the ship date. Again, that's a conversation to have with management. Do we want a better game later, or less of a game sooner? Stagger the release. Again, that's a conversation with management. Like, hey, what about if we delay the console version? Is that would that be bad? Because they might say it's okay, and in which case that gives you a bit more development time. And now I'm getting onto some of what I consider the better ideas. Okay, so improve milestone planning. So when you're planning a milestone, it's best to leave, and you'll come up with your own numbers for this, but I like to leave about 25% of time unaccounted for unforeseen and underestimated tasks. That 25%, so let's say you've got a 4-week milestone. If you could leave that last week empty when you're at the planning stage, I think that's a good idea. When you get to that, that 3rd week is complete, if all your tasks are done and, Jira's just empty and everyone's like, yeah, we nailed it, good milestone, then you're in a great position. You can kind of go, hey, let's let's pull in some stuff from the next milestone and get ahead on that one. But what inevitably happens is you get to week 3 and it's like, oh, well, some of those tasks from from the first 3 weeks, they ran a bit longer, and also some bugs came up, and the manager just said that there's this new feature that we've just got to get in right away. So that week always gets used up. So yeah, I like to keep about 25% available for unforeseen stuff. Make sure you have task estimates so you have an idea of how long things will take. Be strong in the face of pressure. Stakeholders like managers or company owner or the clients, they'll push to get more in than it's possible to deliver. And then you'll have a hard time if you don't, and then they'll give you a hard time if you don't meet their expectations. It's better to temper expectations going in. So, the manager might be like, the business owner might be like, we've got to get jetpacks in right away, milestone, in this milestone. And you're already looking at Jira and it's like, well, the milestone's already full and jetpacks is going to take somebody a week. So you've got to kind of push back a little bit. And saying no to a stakeholder, like a client or business owner or your boss, is difficult. And it doesn't make you look good, right? So one thing you can do in that kind of situation is say, yeah, I agree, jetpacks would be awesome. We currently don't have time in the milestone to do that. However, if we remove speedboats and do jetpacks instead, I think we can make it work. How's that sound? Okay, so you're involving the person in the difficulty of managing the project rather than just sort of rolling over and saying, okay, sure, because it'll get to the end of the milestone and it's like, okay, well, we didn't meet the milestone, and then they're like, well, why not? You're not a good project manager. You should be driving the team to get this done. Well, you know what? So you make them part of it. Okay, all right. Anyway, enough ranting. Consider having some things as stretch goals, if time permits. Stretch goals. So, how I said there's 25% time unaccounted for? Well, you could have some goals that you consider stretch goals. You could, in Jira, let's see, what would I do in Jira? I'd probably leave them on the next milestone, but I'd just sort of like have a little bullet point list somewhere of like, these are the stretch goals. And if we run out of, if we get everything done for this current milestone and we're looking for other things, I'm going to go to my stretch goal list and we'll pull things in. So in that case, when the manager says, hey, I need the jetpack, you can come back and say, all right, well, this milestone's full already, but how about this? I'll put it on my list of stretch goals. And if we get time this milestone, we'll squeeze that in. And people will often go for that. And it's genuine. If you have the free time, then you get that in. You can get that in. And train your team to understand that hitting realistic, agreed upon milestones is important. So a common stance is it'll take as long as it takes. And really that is a view that I have. I can estimate a task, but when I do the task, it's going to take as long as it takes. But there is something to be said for accountability. At the beginning of a milestone, you say to your team, the individuals on your team, all right, is this list of tasks, can you get this done? You've done the estimates. I've given you 25% buffer time. Can you get this done? And they should at that point say yes, because they did the estimates and there's some padding. They should be able to say yes, I'm pretty confident. And holding them accountable at that point is like, all right, you're kind of promising that to me, and my neck's on the line. You've got to make me look good. Okay, so you can you want the team members to know, like, it's important to hit milestones. If the milestone's getting close and things are not on track, well, it's important. So maybe get back from lunch on time. Don't stretch out your lunch hour. Maybe don't be rocking out to music. Just really focus on this. Or if there's people having an impromptu video game tournament in the meeting room, maybe skip that so you can get this milestone done. So getting everybody into that mindset of like, hey, it's important that we hit the goals that we agree to, and in that, it's important that the team members take part in defining that milestone or those estimates, so that it's not just you or somebody else saying you need to get all of this stuff done for this milestone. Because if you do that and you give them an unrealistic list, then they're not going to care about not completing that list. They're going to be like, well, you gave me too much. That's not realistic. So I'm not going to lose any sleep about not getting this list done, right? So, you want them to be, helping to form the plan and then, committing to it and doing the best they can. Now, will they always get it done? No, maybe not. But they should try. They should see it as important. So communicating that to the team, getting people to see it as important, that we get things done on time. That's an important thing. All right, what else can we do? Focus on key risks. Pardon me. Maybe we need to sort of pump the brakes. We need to stop the team proceeding with the original plan and focus on some key problems. Is the game not fun? All right, let's focus the team on prototyping and finding the fun. Forget everything else that we were in the middle of doing. Let's just focus on that right now. Maybe also create an approval process to determine when it's good enough, because finding the fun is a tricky thing. It's like, what is fun? How do we know when it's fun? Is it the client or the owner of the studio needs to play it and go like, yeah, that's fun. Like, is that how we're going to do it? Or is it the lead designer? Or is it the QA person? Or maybe it's like a vote. Maybe some thought needs to go into how do we determine when a thing is fun. Maybe we do focus groups. Maybe we bring in our kids or our friends' kids and say, hey, play this game. What do you think? Maybe that's how we do it. So, okay, all right. So that's what you might do if the game's not fun. Is there a performance problem? Is it running at 5 frames per second and it's unplayable? Well, have the programmers profile the problem. That means like analyze where it's spending its time and what needs to be improved, and then optimize it. Optimize what you can. You can come up with art budgets, so artists know how many polygons and how many objects they're allowed and how complex their materials can be. The artists and programmers will know what these mean. You can create tools so artists can police themselves. They can measure the performance themselves. So that's if you've got a performance problem. Are there too many bugs? Well, maybe we spend this next milestone just fixing bugs. Everybody just, stop working on new features. Let's just get this game really stable. Let's get all the features that we've currently got in, working well. And then next milestone will carry on with features. So you can spend some time focusing on key risks. That's one way of that's one way you can be off track. You could be off track schedule-wise. These things are other ways you could be off track. The game's not fun. The game runs too slow. The game's really buggy. So you can focus on those things. I just realized that this slide's a little different in that most of the other slides are talking about schedule, fixing being off schedule, and this one's focusing on other ways of being off track, being not fun, performance problems, etc. Okay, what else could we do to get the schedule back on track? Cut scope, okay? So compare your schedule, actual days spent, to identify compare your schedule to your actual days spent to identify where you were wrong. So, if things are going wrong, you can compare, like, what was the original schedule and how long is it taking us to make things? And maybe you can spot some patterns of, like, creating animations, instead of it being 2 days in animation, it's 4, and now you can understand, like, okay, this is where we're going wrong, on that. So you can look for the most time-consuming parts of the project, either just in the schedule or with how things are going. Where's all the time going? And then you can consider cutting back in that area. So you might reduce the number of levels, number of NPCs, number of weapons, something like that. Sometimes this is a good thing. More isn't always better. So, this might be a game and there's 20 weapons in it. And do you really need them? Like, does that actually improve the game as a whole? Would it be better to have 6 good weapons or 20 that are not so good, or or even levels? Like, the game's got 12 levels. Okay, how long is it going to take the player to play through the game? How long do we want the game to be played for? A game player, someone that's playing the game that's really enjoying it might say, I want to play the game forever because I love this game. But if you think of it kind of like a movie, you go to a movie, well, you want at least 90 minutes, right? At least an hour and a half. If it's more than 3 hours, then, like, I don't really want to see the movie. It's too long. And with games, how long should you play the game for? Is it an 8-hour game? Is it a 2-hour game? Is it a 3-week game? So, more is not always better. Trimming down the number of levels, NPCs, weapons, or other things can still leave you with a game that's just as good, just as enjoyable, maybe even better. But it's not always possible. Some scope cutting might be okay, but there's a limit where the quality of the game suffers. So, if the game was going to be 8 hours long, but now it's 1 hour long, well, I might be pretty upset about spending $30 on this 1 hour game. Or, if it had 20 weapons and now it's got 2, well, I might get kind of bored of those 2 weapons and, think that's not very good. And another way that it might not be possible is you might have a contract with a client that is asking you to build the game, and in that contract it says there's going to be 12 levels, and so you can't cut levels because the contract says there's got to be 12. Now, you might be able to cut those levels to be a little bit shorter. Or it might say that the game has to be 8 hours long for a sort of average player or something like that. So, so there are limits to how much you can cut scope. But sometimes a bit of a trim is not a bad thing. Tweak the design. And I particularly like this one. So adjust the design to be quicker to build. So a very common one is perhaps you can replace some unique NPCs with variations of others. And you'll see this in games very often. Let's see, we're making a shooter and we were going to have like 10 different types of soldier, okay? And they're differentiated by what kind of weapons they use or what kind of equipment they can use. So there might be a soldier that can operate a gun turret, or one with a machine gun, one with a flamethrower, one with a rocket launcher, that kind of thing. So we've got, going to have, let's say a dozen. There's going to be a dozen of these guys. Well, instead of having these like 12 unique NPCs, maybe we can have variations. So we could have flamethrower guy, and we could have flamethrower guy 2. And the first one, his flamethrower is not so powerful. It's got a short range. It doesn't do so much damage. But the other guy, we just change one number, and the flamethrower range is bigger. Like, it's twice as far, and the damage it does, tweak another number, and now that one does more damage. And also, with a couple more clicks, now he's got like a metal faceplate and you can't shoot him in the head because it just bullets bounce off, or he's got more health points, so it's going to be harder to kill. So basically we take one NPC and we tweak a few numbers, we sort of clone it, tweak a few numbers to make one a bit weaker and one a bit stronger, and now we've got like 2. And this can be quite good from a game design perspective because the player, they first encounter the weaker flamethrower guy and have to learn how to fight that person. And then when they meet another one later, it's like, I'm starting with some information, like I know how to fight these guys, but it's harder this time, and I've got to improve my skills, kind of thing. So it can be quite satisfying to meet sort of variations. But to make that NPC, that NPC just got a whole lot cheaper. So we can still have 12 NPCs, but some of them were very cheap to make because they're variations on others. Similarly, you could perhaps remove unique weapons and replace them with powered up variants of others. So you got, machine gun A and machine gun B, and machine gun B's got a faster reload time and shoots more bullets. It's got a bigger clip and makes a nicer noise, and it didn't take long to make that. Perhaps you could change how you're building levels to use reusable chunks. So let's try and keep this first person shooter analogy going. Maybe there could be some buildings that are common, reusable buildings or tents, and you might have one level that's got some tents in it. Well, maybe we could have a few more levels that have got tents in, and then we can just kind of copy paste those tents over. Maybe move a couple of objects around. We'll put a desk in this one, and we'll move some beds in this other one. But instead of what was going to be there was a power station. Now the power station's gone, and we didn't have to build a power station, and we just copy pasted in some tents. So by reusing more stuff, we're reducing the art budget. Perhaps special player moves could be replaced with jump higher or run faster, which are quicker to implement. So similar to the NPCs and the weapons, if the player can jump, well, maybe later on they can buy, they can pick up some shoes that allow them to jump higher. And so we're just tweaking a number, and now you can jump higher. But game design wise, that could allow you to access new areas of the map that you couldn't access before. So there's a good reason for it. Now you might do that instead of some other thing, like let's say I'll go back to my jetpack. All right, so we were planning on giving the player a jetpack, but when we estimated it, it was going to be really complicated. And if we just give them the ability to jump higher instead, it's going to achieve the same thing. They can now access these high points, but we can do it in a day instead of a week. This is the kind of like creative thinking where you're looking for efficient solutions. The scope stays about the same size. We've got the same number of NPCs, weapons, player moves, but we just made some intelligent choices about, hey, how can we do this cheaper? How can we do the same scope but cheaper to make it? So with creativity, these types of tweaks can save time without cutting scope or quality. And I think this is the last one. Finally, optimize processes, also known as sharpening the axe. So maybe there's just efficiencies that could, maybe you can just make the team more efficient. So look for people who are complaining about having to wait for things or performing laborious, repetitive tasks. If a programmer spends time manually making builds for the QA department, have them set up Jenkins to automatically make builds on a schedule. So Jenkins, if I've not mentioned it before, is a piece of software which you can give it a script and it will do a series of, it's basically running a program kind of thing. It's going to do a bunch of things. So what could it do? It could get the latest version of all the code from Perforce, build the game, and copy it to the network into a folder, and QA can just get the latest game from that folder. And Jenkins, it's got a timer mechanism, so you can say, okay, every hour or every 3 hours or every night, build the latest version of the game. And once you've set it up and fixed, a couple of problems, etc., once you've set it up, it just sits there spitting out build after build after build of the game, and QA, can just go get the builds from there. And then you've freed up a programmer. That programmer's now, adding the jetpack or, doing other things. Using Jenkins or automated build systems is very common these days, but a few years ago it wasn't so common, and there's still a few studios that are not doing it yet. So if there's no automated builds, get the team doing automated builds. It costs you a little bit of time in the, up front, but once it's working, it pays for itself. If a designer complains that an aspect of level building is taking a long time, consider whether a programmer could improve the editor tools to speed them up. I'll give you an example. Let's say the game has got floating gold coins that the player is going to run around collecting, and they should all be placed, let's say, 1 foot off the ground. Okay, so we've got this floating gold coin spinning there, and the player's going to come and get it. Well, a designer might have to place 200 of them throughout the level, and placing each one, they move it into position, but then maybe getting the height right is painful. It's like, okay, move it down a bit, play the game. It looks a bit low. Okay, move it up a bit. Oh, now it's too high. And that could be taking them a long time to place them all. Maybe there could be a better tool. You just kind of drag a gold coin, and as soon as you let go, there's a little bit of code that runs that works out how high it is off the ground and fixes the height to be the right height. So that we've got this nice consistency, and all you have to do is just kind of drag the gold coin, let go, and bink, there it is. So that would be an example of a tool, a simple tool that would speed up a laborious process. If people spend long times syncing to Perforce, perhaps IT can speed things up. Maybe the network is running slow, or maybe the Perforce server is getting really overwhelmed. The CPU on that machine is just at 100% the whole time because it just can't keep up with all of the people that are submitting code and getting latest and stuff. And maybe IT could just kind of improve that machine or improve the network, and now people are waiting less time so they can be more productive. Another common one is if people spend long times compiling the game or cooking data, perhaps they need a faster PC. Perhaps they've just got an old PC that's just not very good. And IT could just give them a new PC that's got more RAM, more cores, whatever, and they're going to spend, less time per day. You could save an hour a day, by just having a faster PC. There's also some other tools. There's one called Incredibuild that that can speed up compile times or cooking times by spreading out the work across multiple machines, or maybe doing the work and caching it, like keeping hold of it, and then if somebody else needs the same work doing, then you can just go, oh, here's one I made earlier, you can have a copy, So let's say you had to, the game has to compress a big texture or something like that, and it takes a minute to compress this big texture. I'm just making something up. Well, if if that texture could be compressed, and then anybody else that needs that texture compressing in the future, you could just give them the compressed version. Like, oh, we already compressed this one. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. It can. So there are tools that do these kinds of things where you spread out work, or you kind of keep the results of work and just give people the answer, the completed work. So maybe there are some tools improvements as well. So that's optimizing processes, saving people time. So yeah, it all starts with listen to what people are complaining about. Like, oh, I've got to get latest. This is going to take me an hour. Oh, really? Why does that take an hour? Is there anything we could do to speed that up? Could we get it down to 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10? Because if you can save that time, that's time that they're spending on the game. All right, man, that was a lot. Let me just quickly summarize those, because I don't have a slide that lists them all. So determine the problem. Analyze what's going on, what the problems are. Consider dialing down the quality of certain things. Maybe not everything has to be gold-plated and fantastic. Maybe you could be a bit more selective. Work longer hours. It's kind of a studio decision. Are people going to get rewarded for that? How much are we going to do it? Is there a limit? Are we looking after the staff? Are they going to quit? But maybe some longer hours are okay. It really varies by company. Add more staff. If the management are okay with it, you could do that. Change the ship date. Again, if management are okay with that, that might be an option. Stagger the release. Again, it's a management decision, but you could propose it. Improve milestone planning. So, if every milestone's over, maybe it's because you're putting too much into the milestones. Focus on key risks. Maybe if you've got a big problem, this one's outside of scheduling, but if you've got a big problem, game's not fun, it's got performance problems, it's crashing all the time, maybe you need to just sort of like stop for a little while and just focus on that thing, and then get back to the plan. Cut scope. If you can find some areas that can be trimmed back without really affecting the quality of the game, that's an option. Tweak the design. So it's basically like change this, sort of tweak the scope. It's find more efficient ways of solving the problems that you planned on solving. And optimize processes. Look for people who are inefficiently using their time, and look at how we could improve that. All right, so when you do all of those things, that should get your project back on track. Fingers crossed. Like I said, it seems like every project you work on is always kind of like wanting to go off track, and so you're constantly using all of these things and more to try and keep things going in the right direction, try and stay on target for the shipping on time and getting the quality in the right place. All right, hope that was helpful. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.